I think I get to do this when I'm talking. And welcome, everyone. And Spirit is moving me to make a change this morning, right now. We were going to greet each other and find out who the visitors were after our meeting, but why not do it right now? Because it's been 22 months, not 7 days. So are there any who are here for who are visiting, whose names are not known to everyone? If you'd like to introduce yourselves, please do so. If you don't need to. If you don't want to, be a Unitarian. We're so, and sit where you are. Yes. Welcome, welcome, Jules, welcome, welcome. Anyone else who'd like to introduce themselves? Yes. Carol Matthews. Thank you, Carol. We're happy you're here. We're very happy you're here. Okay. Welcome, Bob and Lori. Welcome, welcome. Yes. Okay, now I know what all of you would like to do, and I apologize to those of you who are on Zoom, but let's spend a couple of minutes in just greeting each other. Because I know that's what you want to do. Okay, so I will ring my bell when we're finished. And hi, Joan and Bob and Marilyn and Sherry. I can't see all of you, but I'm happy that you're with us. And Sherry, you're coming all the way from Texas still. Wow. Well, welcome. I'm trying to see if I could see other people. And Karen Greenberg, welcome. Is your sweet Cerise with you? Okay, someplace. Yes, I do. And Daryl and Levon, welcome. And Jim and Anna Bess and Suze and Carol and Ray and Tony Dennis and Andy, if he's there, welcome, welcome. Love your tree. And Elaine and Mary Steenhook. And I bet that's not Tom because Tom is here. I bet that's Diane in that dark frame. And then welcome to Jerry Carley. We're happy to see you here. And Ria, who's not feeling very well. And Suki and Barb Nye, welcome. And Karen Anderson and Dave, welcome.
Who are you seeing?
And Merle and Barbara Wilson and Sue Nauman. And behind me is Art Gorski, welcoming everyone. And then I think I'm seeing a photograph of Deidre and Michael. And there's Drew Potter welcoming us. Well, coming to us, and I'm welcoming you. Thank you.
What a mess.
And that gave me a chance to welcome all of those who are coming to us on Zoom. And there are many, many. And you're going to be able to see them also on that screen. And so welcome. And we ring this peace bowl this time. Although I know all of us hope for peace, I believe we're ringing it with the joy of able to be in person and see each other and be able to greet one another. Is there something happening? Sounds sounds like a little underwater animal or something. But we also ring this bowl for our collective hope for peace on earth. We have felt for 22 months what it is like to live, or 20, I think more like 22, what it's like to live in a world that is being, where there is danger. And we have learned many things from that time. We acknowledge, if all of you feel your feet on the ground, whether you are in this sanctuary or at home, let us acknowledge that these lands that we love, these places where the sunrises and sunsets are so beautiful, that these are the ancestral lands of the Yavapai people, the Wipukepas, the Tolkepayas, the Quevkepayas, and the Yavapai. We begin with the words from two people whose lives and teachings about joy are at the heart of this service, the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Let us listen.
Indeed, I'm very, very happy and great honor to talk one of my old friend and spiritual friend. So I really happy having this opportunity, although physically it's a distance, but mentally we always together. I always consider you as an elder spiritual brother. So naturally, now getting older, but your spirit remain generation to generation. I myself, you see, till my death, I carry your spirit. And then one occasion, our meeting at Dharamsala, you mentioned as a believer of God. So you, after that, ready to go heaven. I'm, according Christianity, I'm not believer. So Dalai Lama go something different place.
Good morning, everyone. It is a joy to be with you and to also share this time, expand our sanctuary and share this time with the teachings and the friendship of the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. I am your worship associate today because Tracy Augustine is setting a fabulous example. She is not feeling well today and she is staying home. So we encourage everyone, if you're not feeling well, to stay at home. So I am your worship associate and I begin with our mission statement. We are a compassionate spiritual community that celebrates diversity, nurtures the personal and spiritual growth of all ages, shares our gifts, promotes justice for all, and serves the world we live in. If you are visiting online, please join the breakout rooms. If you're visiting here, we're going to be creating breakout rooms here and in Davis Hall. And we hope that you join those circles. If you're interested in knowing more about our congregation, you can talk with Kathleen. Kathleen, would you wave your hand? She will be at a lovely new table that was given to us by Lee Phillips and Ed Rosage. We are not having refreshments, but we're going to have a lot of conversation today. Today, we also thank our music director, Mary Lou Prince, and our pianist, Lena Huben, and special thanks to Heather Knowles and to Brady Knowles, who have kept us going through this time with making the technology so smooth we didn't feel annoyed. Thank you. Thank you. You will notice that we don't have anything in our hands in the way of programs because we don't want to use paper if we possibly can avoid using paper. So please notice, we will show the announcements, but actually I haven't received any announcements. So that may be, this is perfect. There are no announcements today. We always begin our service in the Unitarian Universalist tradition of lighting the chalice. Our chalice lighter this morning is Cindy Pierce. Thank you, Cindy. Tracy Augustine chose words from the song Bridge Over Troubled Water. For indeed, we have been building bridges over troubled water for 20 months. These words are written by Paul Simon. Sail on, silver girl, sail on by. Your time has come to shine. All your dreams are on their way. See how they shine. Oh, if you need a friend, I'm sailing right behind. Like a bridge over troubled water, I will ease your mind. Like a bridge over troubled water, I will ease your mind. How we have eased each other's minds over and over again during this time of fear. We light this chalice as a symbol of our heritage in gratitude for this beloved community. And now welcome from me. For the past few days, I have been anticipating this moment. I had a taste of the possibility when we showed the documentary Mission Joy. How many of you came to that? Quite a few came to that. It was in this sanctuary with real people sitting on chairs like you see right now. I think that many of us have been trying not to connect with what we have missed during this period. We have been trying to connect with what is. And what was mostly online, and it will continue to be online. And those of you who are online, we invite you and you out there to let us know if you think there are ways we can make these hybrid services more welcoming to all. From the bottom of my heart, I am grateful for the flexibility and faithfulness of this congregation in showing up on Zoom and for finding new ways to connect with each other. Like this worship service in our sanctuary, when this worship service was not possible, we have bravely forged and reframed a difficult time in the history of this earth into opportunities. Something that you will notice that is a little different with our service. For safety, we are not singing. And if you are yearning to sing, please speak with the music director. Raise your hand. Because the choir members have lots of opportunities to sing, and we're going to be singing for you, but from outside. And the Unitarian Universalist Association has given us that guideline to keep us safe. Many of you may have heard the stories of choirs who all infected each other. So we don't want that to happen with you. Today, we're going to have some lively piano music from Mary Lou Prince. And as you did on Zoom, you are welcome to get up and dance. I begin with poetry that has sustained me through this pandemic. These are words of Joy Harjo, a poet laureate of the United States. For the poets, dreamers, and visionaries, and risk takers who planted light in the field of darkness so we could rise up. For our children, great-grandchildren, and all those who follow generation by generation in the story of becoming. For the water spider, who when the earth was covered with water, carried an ember on her back so we could make fire to keep the story going. For the story that we kept going at seemingly impossible odds. Let us now listen to our opening song. And if you like, why don't we rise in body or spirit and see if you feel like moving a little bit. The title is Tango on the Left Bank. You've just entered one of those places in Paris, and the tango music has just begun. Oh, thank you, Mary Lou. Thank you. Let us say our covenant together. I think we're going to have a slide you can see our covenant on. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community. Thus do we covenant together. Bruno may appear. Just a moment. Since this is about the joy, Bruno has lots to say. And he wants to answer your questions. He's feeling much better about his mask, aren't you? Hello. Hello. I am very happy to see all of you here. And I am specialist on joy. So if you ask me question about joy, I can answer. Anybody have question? No question? I have many joyful things in my backpack. I have marbles. I have a little earth. It's very nice. I have some perfume, very nice. Any other things? I feel most happy when this person takes me for a ride in the car and I get to put my head out the window and feel the breeze in my fur. I also feel very good because I also pack rat. I feel so good when I'm able to eat part of car, like brake pad, different things, electric parts, everything tasty to me. So they put me in somebody else's garage during night. No more question? No. Joy. Joy for me in this moment. Joy is looking out at all of you here. That is my joy in this moment. That is my joy. Thank you for question. Thank you, Bruno. Okay. Don't eat anything down there. I might come back after the service and he's gotten that Sharpie in his mouth. And now we enter into a different time. Our time when we gather our hearts together. So I invite you once more to feel that earth under your feet. And let us breathe together. Let us feel this earth that is beneath us, these layers of geologic earth all the way down to the fiery core, this earth that is always changing. And then let us consider the sky above our heads, that wind we can feel all the way up to the place where stars are born. And as we breathe, let us consider all that is among us. We hold especially Cindy Pierce's father, Louis Pierce. We hold him in the light of this community. We hold the many who are still not with us because of difficulties. We hold Judy Davis. I, in this moment, mourn Taya Park because she would have danced with me. She would have gotten up and started circling around. Somebody needs to step up to this. But we mourn those who have left our community. We hold Ed Rosage, Eunice Lovejoy, Janer Eldridge. We hold Dan and Sandy Reardon. I think I saw Dan come in. There's Dan. We hold Peter Eldridge as he continues to bravely venture into a new world. We hold Karen Anderson, who has come out of her surgery well and who is surrounded by love and has so much courage in her heart. We hold Ainsley O'Donnell, who has COVID, also Judy Davis, who has COVID. Masks, remember. We hold Karen and Merle Hagberg, Pocahontas and Jean Gertler, who are not among us. They are on the East Coast now, but we still hold them within this community. We hold Drew Potter and his son Tom as they prepare to leave for Tucson. We hold the families of the youth who died in gun violence in Michigan. We hold their families, we hold their friends. The first candle I light will be for your courage. The second will be for those we lost. And then I invite any of you who have joys and sorrows to express them at this time. If you would like me to light a candle for someone, please just say their name and I will do that. Or if you would like to light the candle yourself, you can do that. For Sean, Lois, Peter, Ralph, Diane, Pauline, for Rick Denny's brother, Duane, for Tristan, for Walter, for Ray, Laura, for Holly, for Aunt Mary, for Sandy Loft. Oh, okay. For Tim, for Marge Groman, who wanted to be here with us and will be. Now, please join me in about a minute of silence. prayer. I'll go over here. Spirit of life, we are here in joy, gathered together after these many, many months of separation. We give thanks. We hold in this community all who are going through difficulties and all those who are going through joy. We hold this country, the leaders. We especially hold the families of those who have lost loved ones in the shooting in Michigan. We hold all of the refugees around this world. For all those things that are deep in our hearts, for which we do not have words, we add to this meditation. With thanks and love, amen. I think we could sing Walking, Walking with You. It's so short. Walking, walking with you. Walking with you is my plan. In this community, we also give back to the greater community, and we have made many friends through our Seeds of Support program. This month's recipient is the Martin Luther King celebration that will happen in January. We at Granite Peak are working with the committee to organize these events, which promote peace and justice in the broader community. What is given in love is received in gratitude. And those of you who are online, you can find the way to give in the chat. And now we will have our first offering in person in 20 months. And this piece of music, which you are also welcome to dance to, is A Rose in the Desert. It is the joy of what happens when you are looking out at the desert and you notice those flowers coming on one after another. What is given in love is received in gratitude. Oh, of course. Thank you. He loves little shiny things. If any of you can't hear, because I never want to be bellowing out, if you can't hear, please feel free to raise your hand. The worst thing for me is if after a service, somebody comes to me and says, I didn't hear a thing. So we have what I think is an incredible quotation that the Dalai Lama took. He only mentioned 2 different parts of Tibetan holy books in this documentary and in the book, Mission Joy. And one of these was by this holy person who lived in the 8th century. His name was Shanti Deva. The words of Shanti Deva from the Dalai Lama. One of my practices comes from an ancient Indian teacher. The Dalai Lama began answering the Archbishop's question about how he did not become morose after having to be exiled from his country and see his country experience such tragedy. He taught, Shantideva taught, that when you experience some tragic situation, think about it. If there's no way to overcome the tragedy, then there is no use worrying too much. So I practice that. The Dalai Lama was referring to the 8th century Buddhist master Shantideva, who wrote this. If something can be done about the situation, what need is there for dejection? And if nothing can be done about it, what use is there for being dejected? The Archbishop cackled when the Dalai Lama gave this answer, perhaps because it seemed almost too incredible that someone could stop worrying simply because it was pointless. In Salt Lake City, Mary Lou and I were able to go to a lecture given by the Dalai Lama in a large stadium. He walked in wearing a baseball cap with the University of Utah emblem on it, with his robes. It sort of matched because it was red. And that made everybody clap and feel at ease. He is a holy man, and holy does not mean serious. One of his dearest friends is another person whom I would call holy, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, the man who led his country through liberation from apartheid into a new era, which meant going through the difficult work of truth and reconciliation. A couple of years ago, before the pandemic, they were able to get together, and that time was recorded in a book. And that book became a documentary. We had about 78 people who came to our Movies with Meaning showing. So I know, and many of you raised your hands at the beginning, and I hope that our service today inspires those of you who haven't seen this documentary to see it or read the book, Mission Joy. Doug Abrams, the facilitator, had gathered questions from people all over the world about different aspects of joy. At the center of many questions was how these 2 men who had gone through such difficulties were able to be so joyful. In the reading that I just gave, the Dalai Lama gives us a teaching that is foundational to his joy. If something can't be done about a situation, what need is there for dejection? And if nothing can be done, what use is there for being dejected? Many of us familiar with the serenity prayer engage in that practice during the day of sorting out what we can change and what we can't. And this quotation, this wisdom adds another layer. If we can't do something, why don't we just be happy? And if we can, why don't we be happy? These two men, however, don't just leave us at this, they give us tools. One of the most important of these tools is what they call reframing. When Archbishop Desmond Tutu talks of the central event of the Dalai Lama's life, his exile from Tibet, have any of you seen that footage of walking through the mountains with the snow and the possibility of the Chinese army watching for them? This leaving of his country was devastating, both for him as an individual, but also for his country, which was then severely punished by the Chinese army. But in all of this, Desmond Tutu comes to the conclusion at the end of talking about this story, during which he holds the Dalai Lama's hand, as if he is sitting, feeling that suffering that the Dalai Lama must have felt to leave the only home he knew. But he comes to this conclusion: without the exile, the world would never have had this wise leader. He probably would have been in Tibet. He may never have learned English. He may never have given his wisdom to us. Archbishop Tutu grew up in poverty with a father who, although marvelous when he wasn't drinking, when he did, he completely changed and abused his mother. And Desmond Tutu, as a child, had to stand by and could not help his mother. I think some of us perhaps have been in that situation of helplessness when someone is violent. He and his family also suffered as a result of his active protest against the apartheid regime of South Africa. They received death threats, and he and his wife had to separate from their children, and they were sent, and their children had to go to boarding schools in Swaziland, where Ardella were, you can speak with them after. Patrick and Ardella spent 2 years, wasn't it, in Swaziland? But the lives of these men were so difficult. They even were excruciating. There were these awful situations that they could not change. The Dalai Lama could not use his force to stay in Tibet. And these hardships transformed them into spiritual leaders. What was so lovely about this documentary was how they were both so visibly infused with joy, and they encouraged joy in others, even in really terrible times when someone was being buried who had been killed by the police in South Africa. Even then, Archbishop Tutu would bring something out to lift the situation, to help people see differently. And I wonder how many of you have had painful experiences that made you the person you are. And yet it is difficult to reframe that experience and say it was character building. The Dalai Lama and Archbishop Tutu would bid us try to do that. For reframing is one of the first steps to a pillar that they bring out in this book, a pillar of happiness or joy, gratitude. For if we can see difficulties differently, I wonder if we could even work to come to that place of gratitude. Archbishop Tutu speaks of Nelson Mandela's 27 years in prison and just the terrible things that they did to bring shame to these prisoners. But yet, he says, when Nelson Mandela went into prison, he was not the leader he could be. And those years made him into the leader that he became, the leader who could, I don't know how many of you have read Nelson Mandela's autobiography, but there's a place where he goes and he speaks with a soccer player. And I mean, there were so many times when he had the courage to cross what was an even larger divide than we sometimes feel in this place. I can only imagine, though, how hard it would be for Nelson Mandela to be grateful for that experience on Robben Island. But it was that experience that made him the leader that he was, that gave him a deep generosity of spirit. Another aspect of reframing, in addition to shifting our perspective, like we change the camera angle, is seeing the larger picture, expanding the frame larger and larger. Our own sorrows do not diminish when we consider the sorrows of communities destroyed by fire or earthquakes, but considering our connection to the world can shift our perspective and can open up a possibility of joy. It makes a crack in those hard feelings. Whatever we are experiencing, we begin to understand that we are not alone. Over and over again in this book about joy, this word appeared, connection. Connection opens up the possibilities of happiness. I am feeling joy today. I can feel joy moving around out there, even though I can't see your mouths. Isn't it odd? I began feeling joyful, a new level of joyful at the movie that we showed this week. And then through the week, as we've been preparing the building, raking leaves, bringing in a tree, thank you, Dan, because I didn't become a pastor to be in my study talking to congregants through a computer. That was not my idea of a ministry. These past 20 months, I have wanted this, but known that it was impossible because it wasn't safe. And I think that we all know, or we will come to know, that this difficult time has been good for us. We have made it good for us. I believe it has strengthened our community. It has shown us who we are. And that isn't true of all communities. We have been blessed. And I believe that it has been your energy to get over the technology and to participate. Our choir has even grown. Throughout the book, Mission Joy, Doug Abrams weaves scientific studies. He cites researcher Elizabeth Dunn and her colleagues who found that people experience greater happiness when they spend money on others than when they spend it on themselves. I think many of you have experienced that. And Dunn also found that older adults with hypertension have decreased blood pressure when they are assigned to spend money on others rather than themselves. And that's why we had a marvelous auction, don't you think, Marianne? And it made us happy. As the Archbishop had explained, we receive when we give. He also said, deep down, we grow in kindness when our kindness is tested. When the Archbishop said this, the Dalai Lama was agreeing. It's marvelous to see them interacting. He was swaying back and forth from side to side. He was looking down, and then he put his fingers together like this. And he said, that reminds me of my friend Loponla, who told me about being sent to a Chinese gulag at the time I escaped from Tibet. The night I fled from the palace of Norbulinka, I was in disguise, so I couldn't say anything to him. I saw him in the chapel. I wanted to say goodbye, but I couldn't. And as soon as I left the palace, the Chinese bombardment started. They arrested many people, and about 130 were sent to a very remote area, like during Stalin's rule, when people were sent to Siberia. After 18 years of hard labor, Loponla was able to come to India, and he told me what had happened during his time in the work camp. They had no shoes, he said, even during the very coldest days. Sometimes it was so cold, when you spit, it would land as ice, like Wisconsin. I remember that. I didn't spit much, but they were always hungry, he said. One day he was so hungry that he tried to eat the body of one of the other prisoners that had died, but the flesh of the dead person was frozen and too hard to bite. Throughout the whole time, they tortured the prisoners. There is Soviet-style torture, Japanese-style torture, and Chinese-style torture. And at this camp, they combined them all into an immensely cruel kind of torture. When he left the camp, the Dalai Lama said, only 20 people of the 130 had survived. And Loponla told him that during those 18 years, he faced some real dangers. I thought, of course, he was talking about the dangers to his life, the Dalai Lama said. And he told me he was in danger of losing his compassion for his Chinese guards. I wonder, what if losing our compassion, losing our generosity of heart, was what we saw as the greatest danger? Each of us is challenged in different ways to lose our compassion and generosity of heart. What if we could feel those moments as the greatest danger? During this pandemic, I have experienced an outpouring of generosity from this congregation. When any need came up, such as the fear of eviction for undocumented families or the loss of jobs that has led to food insecurity, your hearts moved to generosity, and we've been able to help many families get through a very difficult time, and some are still contacting me. We developed relationships through that generosity. Do you know that generosity is even associated with better health and longer life expectancy? If you need a scientific reason or a health reason to be generous, generosity seems to be so powerful that according to these two researchers, just thinking about it, significantly increases the protective antibody salivary immunoglobulin A, a protein used by the immune system and might be able to be seen in Rick Denny's microscope. A week from today, our congregation will be providing gifts to families through our link, our Latino Immigrant Network Coalition. This year, we had an abundance of people who wanted to provide gifts and other help. 2 years ago, a generous gift gave us seed money to cut windows in the Faith Development Building and paint the exterior of that building. Thank you, Dan Reardon. Thank you. And I would like to, at this time, thank Peter Eldridge and Joe Sprague for their generosity. Thank you. They provided that seed money. Yesterday morning before choir, 3 generous souls appeared at 8 a.m. and together we spiffed up our parking lot and took care of the last of the leaves. For most of us, we were seeing something that we were not helpless to change, and we dove in. And we laughed and sang. I hope that after this service, you take an opportunity to go into Davis Hall and look around. Please notice the beautiful word cloud that Bobby Bollinger and Heather Knowles helped to create, and then Dan Reardon framed. He also painted that building across the way and the sheer curtains in there that allow us to have light and not close the blinds were Chris Parsons' creation. And take a look at the new office and the sweet nursery that's now safer than it used to be. Go across the street and check out the light streaming in through the windows. How many of you on Zoom and in this sanctuary have been involved in the renovation and spiffing up and in the food pantry? Would you stand if you've been involved? Or wave on the... Okay, and then we add the auction. Waving, okay, it's okay to wave. Nobody wants to. Stewardship, which went so well. See the same hands waving, lots of hands waving. You are a wonderful sight. We have all been busy and generous, and lots of joy has traveled through the connections among us, through paintbrushes and rakes. I believe that we have a solid foundation from which we can do the work that these 2 holy men embody, that work of bringing joy into the world. In this mission joy, which I hope you see more than anything that these 2 said, was the way that they were, the way that they practiced joy. They were bubbly, they teased each other, they enjoyed each other. They were showing us how to have joy. May we follow in their footsteps and remember that more than anything we say or espouse, we will make a difference by the way that we embody our values in the world. May we find more and more joy through reframing, gratitude, and generosity. May we find many chances to laugh and bring cheer. May we be well. And now, to emphasize the joy, you are going to hear our choir sing, Alleluia. What? No, Lou asked me to skip one. We had lots of greeting at the beginning. choir members? Oh, yay, Barbara. Before we extinguish our chalice, we've already introduced people who are visiting, and I've loved the breakout rooms. So I want you to continue the spirit of the breakout rooms. We're going to move chairs into circles, and there's so many different pieces of this. So that we can speak with each other in a circle. So I think, could the choir maybe help people make circles, like be circle monitors? I love the choir, thank you. Another thing is, in this time, this is a good time to remember that we all have different levels of safety. Some of us do not want to hug people. Others of us do. So it's important this is a good chance to express to people, is it okay if I give you a hug? And it's okay for someone to say, you know, I don't really feel comfortable. So and doing elbow things is good. Making sure that we keep our masks on is good. Yes. So I believe that is all. Does anyone have anything to add to that? Because I've been trying to get feedback from different people about how to make this feel the safest. So a big thing is we're not having food. So you're not smelling anything yummy from Davis Hall, because when we eat, we take off our mask. And I want us to be as safe as possible. And the UUA does. So you can blame me, but blame them. Don't blame me, Barbara. Yes, and you can go into Davis Hall. We'll make circles in there as well. There are 2 circles there already. But yeah, keep your mask on. Anything else? Thank you, Barbara. Yes. Yes, and it's a beautiful day outside, and you will notice if you go back where we have the playing equipment for children, that there is an arrangement of a circle there. So if you want to be outside, it's a perfect time to do that. And feel free, if you want to sit out there, just drag your chair out there and make a circle out there. So we're making this up as we go along. And thank you for your flexibility. And oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes. So we extinguish our chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you all. Thank you. And if you would like to greet me, I'm going to try something new, and that is that I'm going to be up at the front, because I don't want to create a bottleneck. Thank you. A bottleneck in the foyer.